Hello, guys. Welcome to the Website Intelligence podcast. We have today Andrew Chen, which is one of the co-founders of much talked about Explo Co. It's an up-and-coming startup based in the US, more specifically in New York, but all over. They're employing people all over the US. I'm here together with my co-host Matt, and let's jump in with the first question in our first segment. It's Andrew. Where did you grow up, and what would you say it was unique about your younger years, the formative years of yours?
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me so much, Dragos and Matt. It's exciting to be here. In terms of where I grew up, so a little background: I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. For those of you outside the U.S., that's basically in the middle of the United States. Omaha was sort of an up and coming city, I would say at the time. So I would say I lived a pretty normal life. Lived in the suburbs of Omaha, Nebraska. We're really known for a few things: Nebraska beef, Warren Buffett,
Warren
exactly,
Buffett.
and
Yeah, that's what I say.
for the baseball fans out there, the College World Series. So, um, really excited to talk about Nebraska a little bit. I mean, again, it was a pretty standard
Yeah.
life. Went to public school out there, uh, and I think that what was exciting or was unique was that it was really an up and coming sort of city. I think it was expanding very quickly, and it was still small enough that I was able to really know a lot about the city and really be involved. My dad actually had worked in government for a little bit when I was a kid, so I had a lot of exposure to actually working with the senators and governors and meeting those people when I was very young. So it was sort of up and coming, but also small enough that I had a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have had in a big city.
Would you describe anything from your earlier years which might directed you towards being an entrepreneur today?
Yeah, I think the biggest influence was that my father was an entrepreneur himself, so he started his own business when I was a kid. I remember he would work his 9 to 5 job, come home, and then start working on his own company. And that was obviously very inspirational to myself growing up. But really, just having the opportunities to try a lot of things and do a lot of things. I didn't always plan to be a startup founder when I was growing up. I had a lot of other aspirations and other sort of jobs I wanted to do, but I always knew at some point in my life I wanted to start my own business.
I'm intrigued about this like connection between parents who are entrepreneurs because this is like the third person that we've spoken to, Dragos as well himself,
Mhm.
whereby the family are entrepreneurial and therefore that spirit really goes like through to the children. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Was there direct memories that you can recall where you're kind of observing what your dad's doing in terms of this entrepreneurial side, or is it just more like a very gradual, organic, kind of crossover?
I would say it was pretty gradual, but there were specific incidents. Even when I was, 5 or 6, I remember. My dad started his company when I was very young, and in the very beginning, it was really him. My mom was helping, and I think maybe a few employees at most. So he actually does engineering, and back before we had email, even I remember going to the post office with these huge boxes, and they were actually rolled up paper with drawings for engineering and architecture firms. And we would go to the post office. My mom and I would go and drop these off for my dad. So even when we started very young, I remember sort of being involved in the business. And the sort of other benefit was that I was able to go to things like business meetings and meet some of my dad's business partners as a kid. So I was always exposed to it as I was growing up. So I think that definitely had a huge influence on myself.
Yeah, and definitely. I think when I'm thinking back to even my parents, I know in my early years, I think I was like 10 or 12. My mother had this real estate agency. It was actually her first business after leaving the public sector in Romania. And it was really crazy because she, after finishing work at 5 p.m., we all the time helped her putting the documents in order, or she actually sent me to pay some bills and all this stuff. Maybe you can relate also, Matt, to this kind of situation also, where you were involved maybe as a teenager in also business. Yeah.
For me,
Yeah.
no. I have a very different experience. My dad was very much 9 to 5 all his life. From 17, he was working for an insurance company. He worked for the same insurance company his entire career. Um, Short commute, about I guess 40 minutes every day, back and forth. Really into sport. So come home, watch some sport, play sport at weekends. So my main influences were being around, I guess, seeing that kind of day-to-day 9 to 5 life, and then the kind of sport relaxation side of things. I didn't have any kind of entrepreneurial influence around me at all. That's why it's so interesting for me to hear how common it is for that kind of thread to go through generations.
Yeah, and just to add on what actually Matt said, maybe I'm going to ask Andrew now what was actually his first job, or if he had like a first job, or he worked maybe for his parents, or how did you go about it?
Yeah, I think I had a few jobs in high school. The first high school job, actually, I guess taking a step back, I did sort of get an allowance for doing very small tasks for my dad when I was a kid. But I would say my
Yeah.
first, yeah, just yeah, off the record, I'll call them an allowance and not a paycheck. But um, when I was in high school, I did a few research jobs at the local university. Just honestly random sort of areas I was interested in. One of the summers I did biofuel research. Um, that was interesting. Literally, I was cutting grass at the local university to basically collect a bunch of grass and compost it. So that was interesting. For I think that was my probably my first job, and then did some research in the radio space as well. And then when I was in college, I did a few internships, and they were all in finance. So I would say my first official uh,
Mm.
job was an internship probably after my freshman year of college. I worked at a local wealth management firm. At the time, I wanted to go into finance. I thought that was the sort of professional path for me. So worked a few internships there. Ultimately, of course, decided not to go down that path. But I would say officially that was probably my first job, was my freshman summer after college.
I see. Did you get maybe any knowledge, or you draw any experience from the finance background into what are you actually doing now? Because I believe having like an accounting or slash finance background, I think must be really tremendous experience to have.
Yeah, I think it definitely helped. I think all my experiences honestly did help in some way, shape, or form to sort of, even in my day to day, work today. I think just having the very basic knowledge of, uh, even the financial statements and like that is very helpful today. And specifically in finance, I was lucky in that I worked in a few different sort of firms, and it was all very open ended. I was able to focus on lot of different industries. So I remember that first internship, I spent some of that time researching like retail companies, which I knew nothing about, honestly. And so just exposure to new sorts of companies and industries was exciting. Later in my internships, I was able to focus on honestly various different industries and companies as well. So just honestly exposure to a lot of different companies, and being able to pick things up quickly and learn new things was probably the biggest benefit of those internships.
And that's quite like a varied beginning, right? So you have the entrepreneurial side from your father and your parents. You have this kind of bio research element, and then finance. What were like two or three kind of, I guess, like epiphany moments or key things that happened in those early years that then ended up driving you towards the direction you ended up going in?
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, at the very highest level, I realized I did not want to work in finance. So that led me to exploring other opportunities. So definitely think I realized that. I realized that a little bit late, honestly. That was towards my end of university when I realized I did not actually want to work in finance. I did want to do something a little more technical, and hence what led me into tech. Um, but I think, yeah, I guess two things. One, realized didn't want to work in finance. Two was it sort of again pushed me towards wanting to build my own company. I wanted to do something that excited me, every single day. And I think I was able to, again, be able to explore different companies and industries and things like that. So I was always sort of doing something new, which I thought was exciting. I don't think I could ever, work at a company where I'm doing the same thing every single day, and they might be a solid path forward. But I feel like I need something to, sort of stimulate my mind and allow me to push myself and learn new things. So definitely, working those internships, I really did know that, hey, I need to start my own company one day. I need to do something new. I need to do something exciting for myself, and I think that's ultimately where I landed.
Super stuff. So before actually diving into the next question, I would just give a quick context or a quick background to our viewers. Actually, how me and Andrew got and talked more on the business side of things. We actually engaged in a partnership together with his current company, which he will dive deeper into that as well. So because he's founded Explo.co, and as you might know, guys, me and Matt, we are pushing this company around visitor analytics. So we started and engaged into this partnership with Andrew. So, what is actually your current role at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm one of the three co-founders here at Explo, and currently I'm COO and I manage all operations, sales, and marketing at the company. So we're still a pretty small size. We have around 20 employees. So still, wearing a lot of hats and doing a lot, but mostly focused on the sales and marketing side right now.
Because I'm asking just quick to add on that note as well. I know you had, guys, a pretty interesting seed funding and Series A funding, which I read about in TechCrunch. Could you give us some more details on those two things?
Yeah, so let's see, taking a step back. So I started the company in late 2019. Um, Initial round of funding, we actually got into YC. So we did the YC program out in San Francisco and immediately raised our seed round after that. So I think that was around April or May of 2020. Um, yeah, that was right when COVID hit actually, but it was I think
Yeah.
we were pretty fortunate then, and the fundraising market was still pretty hot even back in 2020. And then really went heads down and started building products in the analytics space for almost 2 years. So did a few pivots, ultimately landed on our current product in late 2020, saw some traction over the 2021 year, and then we raised our Series A from Craft Ventures, let's say about March or April of this year.
Was a pretty important sum there. How much are we talking about in the Series A? Because your evaluation must be actually through the roof.
Yeah, I think I think we're very happy with the round. I think we're really fortunate to have the partners we had. We raised a total of about 12.5 million in the Series A.
Yeah, pretty nice.
Just sorry, just taking things back slightly, like from that moment where you decided, right, okay, I want to set up my own company at some point. I wanted to be in the tech space. Like, what were the kind of like key steps that took you from there to going to the YC, process, and kind of how long was that period? Kind of from initially going, right, this is what I want to do, to getting that first investment round.
Yeah, so it was actually very quick. So I guess, yeah, right after university, I actually took a job at McKinsey as a consultant. I worked specifically in the analytics practice. So I was still doing something more technical, really focused on the data and analytics space. But I was working as a consultant. And, I think part of my journey into starting Expo was honestly luck and just good timing. About 2 years into my job, I was looking for other opportunities. I knew that, again, I wanted to start my own company someday, but I didn't know it was going to be then. The stroke of luck came when I actually realized that a few basically friends of mine were also looking for new opportunities. We had all been around, 2 years out of college and had our first jobs and wanted to do something new. So I actually got together with one of my best friends, Gary, who's my co-founder and CEO, and we started working on projects on the side. And this really, again, took very little bit of time because we started working on projects on the side. He brought in our third co-founder, Rohan, and then maybe a month or two later, we decided let's apply to YC. We had a completely random idea, not related to Explo at all, that we wanted to pursue, and I think it was again timing and good luck when we got into YC without any sort of company yet, without a real product or any sort of traction, but just as a sort of as a team. So that whole process was only about a month since I started looking for a new job, and then right as soon as we got into YC, I decided to sort of take the leap of faith, and I think basically left my job right afterwards. So it was a very fast turnaround, but again, I knew it was something I wanted to do. I really did not know that it was going to happen that early in my career, though.
Just to quickly interject there for people who, or I mean, for our viewers. So essentially, Explo.co is focusing on dashboard building in terms of business intelligence. Maybe you, Andrew, could actually give a brief description of what actually Explo.co is, or what your company stands for, and who are actually your clients.
Yeah. So, a quick intro on Explo is that we are an embedded analytics solution. So, we focus specifically on external facing analytics. What that means is if you want to share any sort of data or analytics with your customers or partners or anyone external, you can use our platform. So, our main platform is an embedded dashboard solution. To give you a few examples of the sort of customers that we serve, most of our clients are B2B SaaS companies. So you can imagine logging into any sort of B2B SaaS application. Typically, the first thing you see is some sort of dashboard or analytics or charts and graphs. So we can help those companies build out those dashboards so that they don't have to build it in-house. Main value prop here is we really save the development team weeks, if not months of time compared to building out dashboards themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Apologies for my phone. It's a schoolboy error for the podcast. I've a quick question with regards to your current role, because you're the COO currently, right?
Yep.
And I've worked at quite a few kind of tech startups with COOs, obviously, in the kind of founder group. And I always think they have such a varied and challenging role because there are so many different components to it. Like, what kind of would you say are the kind of key pillars of your day-to-day focus that you're working on, currently?
Yeah, so definitely my role has changed a lot over time. In the very beginning, everyone was just working on everything. And given my experience in data analytics and using a lot of the tools out there, maybe half my time was spent on product. The other half was spent on sort of go-to-market. But today, I would say most of my effort focuses on sales. We have pretty sizable team now in terms of we have a sales team, product team, designers, sales engineers. So, our team itself has grown to this state where not everyone needs to be absolutely doing everything. So I've shifted a lot more of my focus on the sales and marketing world, particularly sort of growing and managing the sales team.
Perfect. With regards to marketing, like obviously because we come from this website focused company, and it's the Website Intelligence podcast, this section is kind of talking specifically about your website. What role within that sales marketing mix does your website currently play, and how important would you say it is to your company and your company growth?
Yeah, I mean, our website is super important. In terms of a marketing resource, of course, we do have to have a good looking and sort of easy to navigate website so that, all of our leads are signing up for demos or, booking trials through our website. So we actually revamped our entire landing page about a month ago in an effort to sort of make sure that it's in the best state possible. So, all our visitors are, of course, looking at our website first. And outside of that, it's the main resource where people are guided towards, from search, from paid promotions, even from sales collateral. We're not sending out, like white papers or one pagers as much anymore. We're really just guiding people to different product pages on our website and different informational sort of pages. So it really is, in a lot of sort of times, the first point of contact with a lot of our customers. So definitely super important that our website is up to date and it's sort of in the best state possible.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's actually the first point, at so or at the first jumping point for anyone to actually get to know your company. It's actually interacting first with your website, so you want to have it as smooth as possible, or as it comprehensive as possible, especially in this era where everyone is bombarded with information. So you have to have also the essential stuff. So this kind of philosophy of don't make me think.
Yep.
uh, you said you revamped your website recently. Did you do also rebranding of the identity of your company? And as a second question, if you had any benchmarks in terms of websites you related to, in order to for you to have like a better understanding in terms of how to actually structure a website.
Yeah. So in terms of the revamp, we did not do a full rebrand. So the sort of main branding elements have not changed. We did add some. So we've started to launch additional products that are basically adjacent and work with our embedded dashboard solution. So we have some sort of new branding for those new products. You'll see products like Architect and Host on our website now that are new, but we did not actually do a full rebrand. So it really was just the sort of landing page uh, piece of it. And we worked with an agency to help us get there. And um, yeah, well, actually, sorry, what was the second question?
Yeah, the second question was if you actually refer to any other websites which you considered maybe as benchmarks, or which served you as inspiration in order for you to better structure the information
Yeah,
in your
absolutely,
case.
absolutely. We definitely looked at a few websites, and for the most part, we were comparing ourselves to actually more of the sort of dev friendly websites. So we decided to push our landing page to be a little more sort of bottoms up focused. So, what we were thinking is we could either take the more enterprise look and feel path. Some of those existing enterprise solutions will have a very different look and feel than the sort of bottoms up SaaS platforms that we compare ourselves to. So we definitely were leaning towards the more bottom up SaaS model. So definitely looked at a few other websites as inspiration for creating our own.
In terms of tech, like so, obviously your like you said, your interest was in tech from the beginning. Obviously, you're very tech savvy. You know a lot about different solutions and things. In terms of your role within the sales and marketing areas, like what kind of tech are you kind of leveraging the most when it comes to both your website, but also all other elements of the marketing and sales process as well?
Yeah, in terms of tech, so the sort of sales and marketing stack is actually very new to me because although I'm leading this role now, I don't come from a sales background or a marketing background for that sake. So a lot of this is new to me, but honestly, learning a lot from my own sales team in terms of getting that sort of, we'll say, a sales ops tech stack stood up. Um, but we're leveraging a lot of tools in a lot of different startups as well. Just to name a few. So we of course have our standard CRM and outreach that we do in HubSpot, in Apollo, and we're leveraging a bunch of other sort of sources to get leads. Anything from TechCrunch to something more enterprise like ZoomInfo and LinkedIn, of course. And then on the marketing side, we're generating a lot of content and leveraging other startups like ourselves. There's a startup we're leveraging called Letter Drop. They really make it easy to post and create content for your company. So we're leveraging them as well to generate all our sort of blogs, social posts, etc. So just a few of the sort of different tools we're using in the sales and marketing stack.
Super stuff. Actually, I would just have a quick step back and come back to at the website thing a bit in terms of the marketing strategy of yours. Are you and sales? Are you following any, let's say, maybe three KPIs in your sales endeavors or in your marketing endeavors at this point, which you are actually looking more closely to than any other KPIs?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what we're tracking, we have a pretty simple funnel that we're tracking. Honestly, we don't have a 7, 8 step funnel, but that really starts at one views on our landing page. One thing that we've been focusing on over the past couple months or so has been organic growth. So as I mentioned, a lot of content. So definitely tracking the sort of inbound traffic from organic search and also other channels, including paid search and direct traffic, etc. So on the very top of funnel, we're definitely tracking the overall website views. The second, of course, is that conversion number. So we have a platform where you can come in, you can request a trial or book a demo. So just making sure that we're tracking those
Mhm.
conversions, so that anyone on our website is actually getting the information they need and are able to basically book time with our team. Um, and those generate the opportunities that our sales team is working, right? So basically those two steps. And then we have, honestly, pretty standard sales, SaaS sales process with the sort of discovery call, demos, etc. We'll set up trials and then, of course, hopefully close some deals. So we're really tracking the main funnel there. But as of recently, as I mentioned, a big push has been on the organic side. So really making sure that we're tracking our organic sort of search as well.
As the founder of like a B2B SaaS company within this kind of MarTech space, like predominantly, am I right in saying that it's predominantly within the MarTech space? Um, how do you like perceive the current environment in terms of the direction it's heading, in terms of the current economic situations, in terms of the incredible growth of different solutions that are available over the last 8 to 10 years? How do you kind of perceive the current environment, and where do you think it's heading? In the next, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years, this kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on the sort of economic and state of the market right now, I think that obviously that there's been some ups and downs recently, and a lot of challenges, honestly, across the world. But I think we're honestly very lucky in the space that we're in. Within data analytics, it's an ever growing market, and especially over the past couple of years, even since when I started Explo, and even looking back in 2020, the market and the environment and even the companies in the space have changed a lot and grown a lot. So I think I'm very lucky. We're very lucky in that the space that we're in is constantly growing still, regardless of the economic situation. And honestly, companies are still spending on data analytics. So I think that's the good news. I think the flip side of that is, of course, with a growing market like this, it is becoming more and more crowded, and more data analytics companies are speeding up every single day. We see competitors spin up every day. There's a new startup, trying to do what we're doing, every other week almost, it feels like. So, but I think that's a good sign. People are realizing that this is a need in the space, and people are building companies to solve this issue. So, on the one hand, it is competition. On the other hand, it is market confirmation that this is something that's needed. Yeah, in terms of where I see the data analytics space going, um, yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's growing very very quickly, and there's a lot of exciting companies out there. Um, I think for us, the focus is really building this tool on top of the modern data stack. So of course, everyone's familiar with Snowflake, and sort of growing in that sort of environment with the new data warehousing technologies and basically everything that sits around it, from ETL tools like Fivetran to tools like DBT, Snowflake, BigQuery, etc., and just working really well with that stack and sort of growing with it. Um, and as this sort of grows and as people sort of uh, continue to have more and more mature sort of data, the need to share is going to keep on growing. So where we see ourselves is focusing on our sort of embedded solutions, but medium/longer term, any sort of data sharing that you're doing, anytime you want to actually give your users or your customers analytics or data, we ultimately want that to happen through Explo.
Super stuff. And if we are to migrate to technology, but now used in, let's say, more personal sphere, more individual level, is there any kind of piece of technologies you're using on a daily basis or more frequently in order to grow yourself, in order to help you get stuff done or make you more, let's say, more performance based?
In terms of like something more consumer or just what I use individually,
Yeah, what you use individually, exactly.
let's see. To be honest, I don't have any specific hacks or any secret tools that I'm using, um, but I can speak for myself and my company. We are uh, huge fans of Notion, so almost everything we do happens in Notion. So whether it's uh, creating notes for myself, sharing out sort of documents with my team, creating areas to work together on. We are a sort of hybrid workspace, so everything is done through uh, just online sort of tools like Notion or Miro board. We've been using a lot recently, so some of those tools have been really super helpful. And of course, every single day I basically live on Slack as well. So I think those are pretty standard tools. So I don't think there's any sort of secrets there. But before working on the startup, I had worked in much more of the sort of enterprise legacy world where we had IBM Chat and Lotus Notes still.
Yeah.
So it's good to sort of shift towards the more modern tools. Um,
It's definitely still
but again, yeah, I wish I had some
revolutionary.
secret tools I use, but
It's definitely still
don't have
revolutionary
secret.
to some people, right? There are still a lot of people working in these older legacy formats. So yeah, there's still people who
Yeah,
are out to
yeah,
discover these things.
yeah. I'm always surprised still. I mean, I sort of feel like in this sort of startup SaaS world, everyone's used to working on a certain tech stack in this sort of Google Slack world, but kind of forget that most of the world doesn't. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to add, because now is this great debate about, okay, we should go ahead and continue with this remote working kind of revolution which was triggered by the pandemic, or we see other companies such as Apple or even Facebook, which now actually they are going ahead and laying off like 12,000 people. Was it? It's crazy news actually. uh, what are your thoughts in this direction in terms of remote kind of work? Because you need to align all the time with your colleagues and with your peers, because you're pushing all these projects together and need to get everyone on the same page. You're using some kind of tech stack maybe to get more aligned or to create a more industrialized process.
Yeah, absolutely. So we grew out of the pandemic basically. We started the company in late 2019, but our first hire we made in 2020, and she was remote. She was actually based in Canada. Our product designer Carly,
Mm.
and when we hired her, we had never met her in person, and we worked together through Zoom and Slack, and that was really it. And so in that case, we were really remote from the very beginning. So I think that's helped a lot in terms of just making sure that we have the right sort of practices down and we're able to work and communicate effectively remote. That being said, over the past year or so, we have been pushing towards more of a hybrid model. So we do have an office here in New York. We have an office in San Francisco as well. So for everyone in those cities, we do encourage them to come to the office and we work together in person. I think there's of course still benefits to doing that, but we do have full-time remote employees as well. So we really try our best to make it work. Part of it is the sort of tech stack. Of course, that is super important. So again, using tools like Notion and Miro and Linear to track everything and collaborate is super important. But there is sort of an in-person element that we push as well, and we meet up with the team at least once a quarter. Last week, actually, most of my team was in New York here with me, so Just good to have some FaceTime as well, and sort of collaborate and push on certain tasks in person as well. So we really try to balance both, and try to be flexible with our employees as well. At the end of the day, I think we do a pretty good job of working remote, and I think part of it is just setting an expectation and making sure that everyone understands their roles and deadlines, and communicates very freely. I think the biggest thing is everyone can Slack anyone. Anyone can chat with anyone at any time. I never feel like that's something that bothers anyone on the team. And I think with that open communication comes a lot of different benefits in terms of working remote, because you really don't have the chance to just chat with people and grab lunch with them all the time. So just keeping that open environment, using the right tech stack, and sort of pushing our employees to be communicative has really been helpful.
And even with partnerships, right? Because this is how we've been communicating a lot, throughout this whole process, is having our own dedicated Slack channel to this partnership, and just it's a great place to collaborate.
Yeah, and I think it actually, there are benefits to working remote, even with our own customers as well. So most of our customers, I've never met in person. It's very different from the model I previously worked in, where we're literally flying to see our clients every single week. But it's made it a lot easier in some ways. We're able to connect with clients across the world. And, similar to you all, we have shared Slack channels that we're using with a lot of our clients. And again, it's super open, and we really stress that they can ping us anytime. They can, chat with us anytime, and we're super open to helping. And I think that actually opens up a lot of sort of space for collaboration, even in a completely distributed world. So a lot of the practices we use with our own employees, we're carrying over to engaging with customers as well.
Mm-hmm. As you were speaking, I was just thinking that both of us, let's say, are more in the startup level, and I recently read some article in relation, just to switching gears a bit here, in relation to having advisors or a group of advisors formed around the company, because most of the startups in the world at the moment are more or less formed around young people, which the article said they possess a more uh, fluid intelligence, as opposed to the the senior guys who have crystallized intelligence. So it's very important to combine those two kind of mentalities. Are you thinking at one point to get an advisor board or go in this direction somehow?
We don't have a formal advisory board, but we do have a few advisors who have been super helpful for us in starting the company, and even till today. Um, I think it's super important, and part of it is, we are pretty young as founders. I feel like sometimes I am actually pretty old in the tech world now, but I guess it's all relative. Uh,
Sorry, how young are you at the
I'm
moment?
27.
That's way to phrase it. You
Yeah,
both are
so it
definitely a
depends on
lot
who you
younger
ask.
than me, so don't worry.
Yeah. So I mean, when we started the company, for that was 3 years ago. We were 23, 24. We didn't have any of the experience starting a company, and there's a lot of things you just don't know. Anything from, of course, the tech and product itself. We probably had more experience there, but all the legal things, standing up a company, incorporating, like all those sort of basic things, we had no idea how to do at the very beginning, and even now, we're diving into a world where we're growing different parts of the business that we don't really have our own experience in. So leveraging our advisors is super crucial. The first sort of main advisors we've got were through the Y-Combinator program. So even till today, we speak with our partners on a pretty regular cadence, who helped us through those initial months of starting a company. And in areas that, again, we don't know or have as much experience in, like sales and marketing, we have a sales advisor who we worked with for a few months, who I still chat with very regularly to sort of give us advice and sort of talk through different areas in growing our sales team and sales process. Um, Across the tech in product world, we have a few advisors that we lean on pretty heavily as well, and from a design perspective and etc. So although we don't have a formal board of advisors really, we really have been leveraging a lot of these sort of advisors in our network that we have either informal or semi-formal relationships with, that have really helped us build the company.
Sounds great. As we mentioned before about how the kind of COO role is so, you know, kind of what's the word, diverse and, has multiple aspects to it, both in terms of that role, but also in terms of the company as a whole. What is the kind of next like 6, 12, 18 months looking like? And what are your kind of key focus areas, both kind of personally and then as a company as well?
Yeah. So big focus for us as a company right now has been and will be just growing the team. Um, as I mentioned earlier, we raised our Series A earlier this year. So with that round of funding and with the sort of growth that we've had, we are expanding the team pretty quickly. Um, Maybe beginning of this year we had 8, 9 employees, and now we're up to almost 20. So that is a huge focus for us. But the work doesn't even stop at making those hires, right? It really begins there. So how do we actually grow the team and make sure that it's uh, a great environment to work, and also that everyone's able to work together and productively as well. So I've really stepped into more of the manager role over the past couple months, and that probably will be my focus over the next 6 months or so. Because prior to that, we had 3 co-founders, which is actually a lot. And you think about it, when we had 6 or 8 employees, half the team was the co-founders, and we literally did everything. I would sit in on all the product meetings, I'd sit in on all the sales calls, I would help all my customers and do customer support, and that was true for all of my co-founders. So really sort of shifting my own focus towards managing, and making sure that my employees have the resources they need to do the job correctly and do the job well is the biggest focus for me right now, post growing the team.
Yeah, definitely being agile and adaptable. It's one of the key traits of actually being an entrepreneur. But actually, before jumping in, maybe into our final top five question, which is now actually famous because we were receiving many questions about it. Uh, I was going to ask you, are you doing at the moment, because we're also tackling marketing subjects here? Are you doing any more push kind of marketing strategies, more paid advertising at this moment, or you're planning to use some of your Series A funding to maybe tackle this area as well?
We do some paid digital marketing, but as I mentioned, most of our marketing focus is on the sort of content and organic side. We do spend on Google ads and LinkedIn ads a little bit, and a few promos here and there, but that I wouldn't say that's the focus of our marketing strategy. Or I think relatively we're not spending too much on paid promotions at the moment. I think that there are sort of opportunities to expand in that direction, and there's always ways to improve. But I wouldn't say it's our sort of main channel. Um, we do have a few different channels in terms of marketing, sales and marketing, but um, even on the sales side, we've grown out our sales team, so we have a few uh, sales development
Mm-hmm.
reps who are pushing on the outbound strategy as well. So of course we're spending in different areas, but um, things like Google Ads are not a huge focus for us.
Just to go slightly back to that kind of pivot that you're currently kind of going through personally, from being the kind of doer involved in everything to being more focused
Mhm.
on recruitment and team management, this kind of thing. Like, how have you found that process? And also, um, what kind of little bits of advice would you give to somebody going through that process? Because I know from my own experience, going from kind of doing everything to then having more of an oversight over everything and trying to kind of just move the parts around a bit, it's quite a big leap, right? And it's quite a complex process to go through.
Yeah, I think process wise, it's more straightforward. It's more that I'm just used to doing a lot of things and sort of having my thoughts and opinions in different areas. And I think that's actually been a little bit of a challenge. Is just really being able to trust my team. And I think we've built a great team. So I definitely trust the sort of uh, all of my employees, and I know they'll do the best work they can. And I think that it's more of just I sort of peek around different areas a lot. And for example, I'm still in all the Slack channels, right? So I'm still in all the product channels, design channels, and everything. So I'm always sort of peeking around, but I have learned to sort of just let things go and allow certain people who are way better at what they do than myself to sort of manage different areas of the business and different sort of tasks that are getting done as well. So I think part of it is just a sort of mentality shift in that you don't have to be aware of every single little thing that goes on, right? I don't have to manage every single sort of project on the product side or design side or even creating the landing page because I do have people at my company who are better than myself at doing all those things, right? So I think that's one shift. Obviously, that's more just like a sort of mentality shift. Um, and the other thing is just sort of realizing where time is best spent. Instead of hopping in on all this sort of sales calls and all of the customer support, account management topics that might be a little more tedious. How can I focus more of my time in training and managing the rest of my employees so that they can perform the tasks again better than I can. Um, so it's really a lot of shift in time. I'm not doing as much just like in the weeds sort of work anymore and just having conversations and thinking about sort of management strategy and growing the team instead. So it's been a big change, but it's been good, and I'm super excited to continue growing the team as well.
Perfect stuff. I think we can jump on our already famous section, which I would ask you maybe to name the top five in maybe in whichever order you would like to traits of being an entrepreneur or things to consider of anyone who would like to go into the entrepreneurial endeavor.
Mm. I'm not sure if I have top five, um, but I'll give a few sort of sort of traits that I think are super important. Um, I think the biggest thing when I talk about other people who are even like friends that are sort of interested in starting their own companies is that I would just say go out and try things earlier than later. Um, the later you get in life, I feel like you're looking for obviously more stability and things like that. You can't take as many risks. And ever since we started this company, there have been so many ups and downs, and it's a huge risk. I think that um, I wish I could say that everything's been sort of smooth sailing and we've just been growing and on the up and up, but there's a lot of ups and downs, and you really just don't know until you try. I think
Yeah, basically what you say is like break things and move
exactly,
fast.
exactly. I mean, even before
Yeah,
starting a company, you got to realize um, you'll never know until you do it. So you just got to try, and I think that's even something that I wish I did earlier. Um, you know, Again, when I was in university, I think that's a great time to just try things, and I was really pretty laser focused on the sort of finance world and didn't actually expand into tech or entrepreneurship too much while I was in school. But if I think back on it, I should have started later, and I think that I wouldn't have known any of this until I just took the leap of faith in late 2019 and started my own company. And I think that you can always be working on things on the side. You can always be exploring new opportunities and just trying things. And I think that's the biggest thing. If you have an idea, just try to build it. Just try to work on it. Even if it's just a couple hours on the weekend. I think that again, you never know till you try. So I would say that's probably the biggest advice I can give.
hmm
And I guess two is I think people just think that the startup world and tech moves super quickly, so that everything's sort of a sprint. But I think one of the first things I learned once sort of joining the startup world was that it can be a sprint. You're probably not gonna work on a startup for 30 years until it blows up, but it's definitely not an overnight success, and there's going to be lots of ups and downs and pivots. And we pivoted through so many different ideas when we first started, and we've been working for about 3 years on this sort of startup, and time really flies. But it's no overnight success where you hear of startups who become unicorns overnight. That's not exactly the way it works most of the time. So just realizing that even in the startup world, things move super quickly, but it's still a marathon, and not a sprint. So I say that's the second thing you got to realize as an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
Um, I think I think those are the top two, but maybe a last one is that one thing I learned very early is sort of back on the advisor question, is that when you're doing something new, when you start in a business, there's absolutely no way that you can know everything. Um, you know, it's you can know a lot, even if you are like a second time entrepreneur. I think that of course that helps a lot, but um, just being able to leverage uh, advisors and people in your network, or even random people, has been super helpful for us. Generally in this community, everyone's very helpful, and there's so many times I go to a happy hour with different people from new companies, and then we become good friends and even mentors to each other. I have a lot of different sort of calls that I just take with people I've met, and there's a lot of people going through the same process. There's so many new startups, there's so many startup founders who are going through the same process as you, and even though they might not have the experience in building a huge company, like there are things that they know that you don't, and just being able to leverage the community and being able to really ask for help um, has helped us get to where we are. There's no sort of pride in knowing everything yourself, and trying to figure in everything yourself, or even with your own team. So just sort of being able to reach out, ask questions, and get help. Everyone's very willing to help. So I think that's
It's essentially be comfortable being uncomfortable.
exactly, and just
Yeah,
understanding what you know and you don't
yeah.
know. Um, right?
Mhm.
There's so many new things out there, and so many areas of the business that you can't possibly have experience in. And even as you grow, things are constantly changing. I was talking about how our roles are sort of changing, how our team is growing to a size that we've never managed before, and if you are doing well, you continue to grow, and there's going to be new challenges. So just being able to leverage the people around you and your support network is super important.
Sounds great.
Perfect. Yeah, I think we can wrap up unless you guys have something else to say. We had today Andrew Chen from Explo.co. I'll just say another time that actually we are partners. We are did this partnership together with Vista Analytics, between Explo.co and Vista Analytics. You have an awesome team, Andrew. Keep going, and for you guys, just keep an eye on the Website Intelligence podcast. Keep an eye on your analytics. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And keep in mind that we are also on the other podcast carriers online. Stay safe, guys. Till the next time. Ciao, ciao.